In 1976, Zeke and I, a friend of mine, decided to take a massive road trip. Yep, to drive to Alaska and back to Elmira. Here's Zeke and I preparing for our road trip. From Elmira, we went to Colorado, and this is Rollins Pass, which was very frightening to go over in the Colorado Rockies. It was really rickety. This is our truck, an F-150 that we were going to take to Colorado. This is how it was packed, and we slept in it. Going through Idaho, we can see a rainbow, but then the prairie was actually on fire as we went through Idaho. And then we hit Seattle, getting very close to the Canadian border. A lot of logging was going on. Once we got into Canada, things got rough. A landslide on the road we had to wait for, and many accidents because it was an oil-graveled road. Decided to take the Alaskan Marine Highway, which started at Prince Rupert and went up to Haines, Alaska. It was really interesting. We hit Wrangell, Sitka, Juneau, and finally we went into Haines, Alaska. It was magnificent. We saw whales and just about everything else. We were on the ship for several days, and the scenery was absolutely magnificent. Here we are in Haines, eating our first pizza in quite a while. In the 1890s, there was a huge Yukon gold rush here, and many miners came up this way to try the Chilkoot Trail to get into the gold fields. It was super difficult, and I have a YouTube video on the Chilkoot Trail that you absolutely have to see. These people went through hell. We were heavily armed because we were afraid of bears. This is a picture of me with a .44 Magnum in my hand. We already had 3 shotguns, a rifle, and 4 handguns. This is a picture of a float plane coming down in Anchorage, Alaska. Now, this is interesting. Do you see the screen guard on the truck? It was to prevent pebbles and rocks from smashing out the headlights, but we had 2 smashed out. This is the Portage Glacier in Alaska. Very nice. And next is Moose Pass, Alaska. And there were actually salmon in all the little tributaries coming up from the ocean. Here we are climbing all over the glacier Matanuska. And notice we are armed. That is because bears cross it too, and we didn't want to get stuck. The glacier was absolutely fabulous, and you can see Zeke trying to leap over a stream. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. As we were driving away from Anchorage, we ran across the Alaskan pipeline, which had just been made, and went to Valdez, Alaska. We drove to a place called Lost Chicken Creek, and there we blew a tire, 8-ply tire, and Zeke was changing it, and I was standing guard with my shotgun. We made it to the border of Alaska and Yukon, but unfortunately we were too late, and there was a chain across the border. So we had to find a flat spot to camp. So there's an airstrip, which we didn't know, and we camped there. Bad idea, because this old guy named Action Jack came out, knocked on our window, and said, "We have to move because we're on an airstrip." So we did, and the next morning, Action Jack invited us to his bar, where we had some whiskey and pumped gasoline into our truck early in the morning. Then we drove to the Yukon River, where we took a free ferry across to the crazy city of Dawson. During the gold rush days of the 1890s, Dawson swelled to over 30,000 people, mostly miners. Now it has just a few 100 or 200 people. This is the type of boats that carried the gold and the miners. Now here, we're at Whitehorse, and in the evening, I looked up and saw this sight. Absolutely amazing, the Northern Lights. People brought signs from all over the United States and pinned them on this crazy road. Look at Village of Waverly and Elmira. Can you believe it? Next, we drove to the Banff and Jasper National Park, and this is a glacier. This is the Angel Glacier in the park. We came down from Canada and entered Montana. It was super foggy, and we were going very slow, but we hit a cow. We were so unraveled by that, we stopped at a bar in Babb, Montana, and we were the only white people in there. We were on a Blackfoot reservation, and it was all Blackfoot Indians. And my friend Zeke knocked a can of beer out of this one Blackfoot's hand and we bought him another beer, and everything was fine. We then drove down to Custer's Last Stand, the Little Bighorn, and that was the site where he was annihilated. And here is the hill that the last stand was on. It wasn't in a valley, it was in a hill. After we saw that, we drove to Mount Rushmore, took a couple great pictures of that. Then we went to the Badlands of South Dakota, had a great time there. And finally to the Wounded Knee Massacre, Olagala Sioux. That was supposed to be Ogallala Sioux. I have a YouTube video on the Massacre of Wounded Knee. Please watch it. And from there, we just went home. 10,000 miles. An amazing trip.